Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Versus Stars podcast. All my loyal listeners, thank you for your continued support. And remember, click the subscribe button, everybody. It's an amazing episode because Vanessa Angel boards the mothership. You know her as Anise, Freya on Stargate SG-1. She now appears as Susan in Johnny and Clyde. Come on board as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Miss Angel. Thank you so much for coming to the Versus Stars podcast.
Hi, well, thank you for having me.
It's absolutely my honor. Thank you so much. I had pleasure watching you on Stargate, so thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's funny. I was just thinking about Stargate. It's so interesting because I did it 23 years ago now, or 23 years ago. I have like a different perspective of what a Tok'ra is and like what that, like, I almost like wish I could play that now.
Yeah.
Because I feel like my understanding of playing Anise Frey would be different today than it was then.
So, like, in which way? Like,
not that that helps anybody, but it's just my realization that, like, wow, there was even more depth to that character, to the symbiote and host, than I even really claimed, I think.
Are you surprised that 20 years later, people still want to know about and talk about it and are thinking about Stargate?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of Comic-Cons. So I do get, I'm around a lot of people who are sci-fi fans, and I mean, they're not all, sometimes they're nostalgia Comic-Cons, but yeah, so I get to actually talk about Stargate a lot. And I mean, I've done actual conventions that are just Stargate conventions, and the fans and the level of detail they know about the show and just what it's meant to them in their life is so profound that you can't help but be inspired by that, really. And it was a very, very well written show. It was very intelligent, and I think that and you had to really like pay attention to the storylines to be able to really take the whole thing and understand completely. So yeah, I kind of love that about sci-fi, that you can even go back and look at it again and get different things out of it, or see things or pick up things that you maybe missed on the first show, first run of seeing it.
I think, I always feel like Stargate is underappreciated for a sci-fi franchise because people talk about Star Trek and Star Wars, but Stargate is every bit as fantastic of a show.
Oh, gosh,
it's as layered, and the fan base is every bit as dedicated as the other two. And I think it needs way more credit than it deserves. I mean,
yeah.
doesn't get the credit deserves. Probably the better way of phrasing it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did. Like, I started doing Comic-Cons around 2004, and that's when the show was, I think it was still on the air and it was newer. So, there was a massive appreciation for it, I would say, in the sort of early 2000s. But, obviously when a show gets older and other things come along, maybe people sort of start to forget a little bit. But yeah, but the core fan base of Stargate is very, very strong. And I really appreciate meeting the people who love the show, and actually, that's the best part of doing Comic-Cons for me, is having these exchanges with fans who have loved the show. I mean, they actually know more about the show than I do. Because, I was in it, it was a job, and, I'm doing like 3 episodes. It was supposed to actually go into another season, but it didn't. And so, the first time I actually did a Comic-Con, I did a panel, and I got asked very specific questions about Stargate, about different roles, different characters, and what this one meant, that one meant. And I couldn't really answer them. Not all of them anyway. So it really made me like sit back and go, wow, like, okay, I am really actually that's what I said earlier about how I've actually almost discovered more about who the Tok'ra were and what it is to be a symbiote, and than I did when I actually played it. So it would be such a dream to actually go back and play that character again, because I think I would bring something even different to it.
Well, there's been so many rumors of the show being renewed. I think by Amazon. I think that's the one that's supposed to be renewing it, and everyone talks about it, and everyone's thinking if you do it, you got to bring back the original group, and that would be fantastic. Yeah. So to give your chance to show back up,
oh my gosh, that would be great. I mean, I don't know if Richard Dean Anderson is up for that, but it'd be hard to do it without him.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, there's so many reboots, but I agree. It's like, I think that if you have a reboot with some of the at least some of the original cast, it just brings more meaning into it. And I think that that would be great if they could pull that off.
And my memory serves, and I'm pretty sure it's correct. Your character never had a definitive fate. I mean, it's not like your character's dead; it can't come back. Your character can literally come back at any time.
Yeah, she could. I mean, she was actually supposed to come. It's kind of a long story, but I came on that season in 3 episodes, and they were talking about me coming onto the following season. But then I ended up, but there were some sort of issues going on, and then I ended up actually having a 21-year-old daughter, and I got pregnant with my daughter, and it was sort of it wasn't really aligning to continue to play Anise Freya with the outfits and all that stuff. So I don't think that would Tokra would have looked a little funny with the. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Sorry to get gross, but can you imagine that that top? Yeah, that would not have looked good.
No,
it would have been bigger than my head.
No, I assume technically Tokra could get pregnant, right? So you could be be like the only one they ever show, but he could be technically.
I guess, but that ship has sailed now.
So, how did you first get involved as Anise Freya in Stargate SG-1?
Well, I actually met with I had done Kingpin in '96, and that was MGM. And one of the executives of the TV division of MGM had sort of spotted me and thought, was trying to find a place to fit me into some MGM TV show. And they were planning on bringing this character onto Stargate. So I sort of sat and had a meeting with them. And I never actually met directly with the people because they were already in Vancouver with the producers in Vancouver. So it was sort of more kind of like through the executive channel. But it was sort of very fast. It all happened very sort of fast, and I'm suddenly on a flight to Vancouver, and I was I was sort of thrown in the deep end, and I remember my first day there, I'm there's a wardrobe fitting, and I'm in these crazy outfits, and to be honest, I wasn't that familiar with the show, so I had to sort of do a crash course in figuring it all out, and so yeah, so I was kind of thrown in the deep end pretty fast with that.
So when you were auditioning for the role, did you pretend that you were familiar? You were like, yeah, I know Stargate, I'm a big fan, or did not even come up?
I mean, I think I had seen a couple episodes, but I hadn't seen the entire. I think I was on the 3rd season, so I hadn't seen the entire first 2 seasons. But yeah, I mean, you usually have to go into a meeting with some enthusiasm about the material, because I remember, this is a funny, I don't know if it's really relevant, but a story, my very first audition when I was starting out after Spies Like Us, I'm literally 19 years old, and it was an audition for Big Trouble in Little China, and that was a John Carpenter. And I read the script, and I had no idea how to read a script. I had really no idea what I was doing at all. And I had a big agent, so they got me this big meeting. And I went in there, and I was just like, well, I'm not really sure about the ending of the movie. I was really, and I'm telling John Carpenter, this 19-year-old girl is telling John Carpenter, that I didn't really buy the ending of the movie. And my agent was like, oh my God, no. I mean, you don't want to be lying to them, but I just didn't realize. I mean, it's different now when you're, established and you're, you have some history, and you have some veteran, but you're a veteran, then you can come in and maybe have more of a collaborative conversation. But when you're 19, you don't go into a meeting and tell the an iconic director the ending of his script.
So how much acting is involved in the audition, and not the auditioning itself, but pretending you care about the material that they gave you?
Well, I mean, I think you have to find a way into the material, whatever role it is, that you have to like the character you're playing, even if it's a really horrendously dark character. I think you have to find that's your only way to sort of weigh in to actually playing it. So I mean, I don't think you can, if you absolutely, as an actor, as a performer, if you absolutely hate the material, or it doesn't resonate with you at all, I usually pass. But you have to, there's so many variants that go into picking a role. But I guess I just wanted to sort of get into the sci-fi world at that point, and I did think the show was incredibly well written, and I really liked the character. I liked the opportunity of playing, the duality of having a host and a symbiote, because really in a way it's like we all have polarity as humans, right? Or just what I obviously I'm a human, so I relate to that. Um, but it's very similar to sort of like dealing with the two very different sides of yourself. I mean, a lot of times it's even more than two different sides, but it was really about sort of dealing with. I chose to sort of look at it as almost like the left brain, right brain, or the dark, the light. Somehow you have to incorporate these two different, uh, perspectives. So I sort of tried to look at it like that, and I mean, it was helped a little bit because Anise obviously has the voice that's that they do in post. Um, but it was definitely challenging, right? And also the Toker speak in a very, very specific way. So when I was learning the lines and the material, it was challenging because you had to really learn it almost like another language, because you're naturally as a human, as a person, you want to paraphrase how you naturally would phrase a sentence. I mean, that can be the same for almost every character. Like sometimes you read something and it's very much how you would naturally speak, but the Tok'ra is not like that. So you had to really learn it really well, so then I could let go of the words and try and inhabit Anise or Freya without getting caught up in the God, did I say that right? Did I say gold right? Did I say the Jaffa right? I mean, there were so many words that were like foreign. So it was a lot of stuff going on that you had to kind of remember, and also be, Anise was very sort of stoic, and Freya was a little looser, but there was a lot of stuff going on to remember.
So when you got the role, what did they tell you about the character itself? Like what was your entrance into the character that you were able to grab onto and saying, okay, now I get how to do this?
I think it actually really took me to actually be on the set, and when I had to, because I wasn't really sure how I was going to transition. I mean, I'd seen how some of the other actors had played Tokers with the transition from symbiote to host. And once I kind of got that down, that was easier, because I kind of could. I don't know. It just kind of got. It's such a mystery, really, to be honest. Like sometimes I don't know how. I mean, I was, I trained as an actor and I have a basic foundation, but sometimes there's a point where you just sort of get on a set and you're in the costume and you're actually with the other actors who are also in costume, and you kind of step into the fantasy. And with these kind of shows like Stargate, which are very fantastical and you have to use your imagination a lot, you kind of step into this fantasy and you just kind of go with it. You just, I don't know, it just moves you. I mean, it sounds like weird, but and I, as long as you're listening as an actor, you've always got to be listening. And obviously with the Toker is a little different, because your responses are not like how necessarily like the human part of me would respond. So there was definitely, it was very challenging, because there was a lot of work to be done on the characters, and then there's a lot of, like I said, there's complex storylines, there's complex things going on, in terms of the high stakes of what was happening. So it was really, in some ways, I would say the most challenging role I've ever played.
Now, when you're thinking about the character of Anise and Freya, do you consider them, like, were their intentions good, do you think, or were they more manipulative? Because like there's something definitely questioning about some of the things she was doing. So when you approach it, do you think her intentions were good, or do you think she's kind of manipulative and she doesn't really give a damn about the humans?
I mean, I think that as a, you always have to believe what you're doing is right. I mean, that's the dilemma that we're in, right? In the world right now. It's like everybody's holds so tightly to believing their beliefs and feeling, justified in what they're doing. So I always assumed that any character, I mean, even if it's someone who's conflicted and who's grappling with decisions, there's a part of, with Anise and Freya, I definitely had to stick by what I believed was to be right in my mind.
So one interesting thing they were doing in the story as well, at least they implied it, and is that there was a romantic subplot. So Anise and Daniel was supposed to be, seems like it was a subplot. Freya and Jack was a subplot. So what were discussions like about where these were going? Was there some discussion that one was going to be played out more in the series?
Yes, well, I think initially they wanted me to come on and be more of a potential love interest for Richard Dean Anderson, so more of the Freya storyline. But there was some. I honestly don't really know what happened, but I don't want to like throw anybody under the bus because it's a long time ago and it's all water under the bridge now. But I believe that I don't know if it was her specifically or her team or the writers getting together, but they wanted to kind of push the storyline between Richard Dean Anderson and Amanda Tapping. Because you remember, I don't know if you remember the episode where she's being questioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't know if it was her as an actor or what the deal was, but they didn't. She wanted to have that storyline.
So, I mean,
yeah.
So
I honestly don't really know. You'd have to ask the producers.
So in your opinion, as someone who knows these characters, you inhabited them, which one would have been the better fit, Daniel or Jack?
Well, I mean, I think for Anise, Daniel was great because she's sort of more left-brained and sort of like, more like Daniel. And so that was sort of an attraction of similar lights. And I think Freya was a little bit more related to, the more of the human emotion. So she was more drawn to Richard Dean Anderson. But I don't know. Like, I mean, I mean, that was what was sort of interesting is like playing the right brain, left brain. It's like what wins out. I don't know. I mean, I think it would have been interesting to see how Freya, developed if that relationship had gone further.
And
I think Daniel and Anise would have kept everything very contained.
Well, I mean, because we think about Jack as a character and his hatred for the Gould and the Tok'ra, it would have been a great character build to have that and then being with the Tok'ra.
Yeah, exactly. You got that built-in kind of conflict of potential misunderstandings, but there was definitely a draw there. I mean, I don't remember the scene where we like kiss. I mean, that was that was quite a it was quite a beautiful moment actually. There was that you could sort of feel that trepidation of like, oh, is this what's happening here? Like, is this safe? Is this like in life, right? It's like, whoa. And I would have liked to have seen how that had continued actually.
When somewhere out there there's probably fan fiction that already handled it somewhere out there. But and I think the funny thing is too, though, the way they wrote her character, every time she switches from Anise to Freya, I felt like that was like a signal that she's about to screw over the human team. It was like the most manipulative thing was like, all right, we're gonna do the human is gonna come out now, the Freya's gonna come out, and it's like, oh, now she's gonna get them because she's gonna be nice and human and compassionate. And I kind of always thought like, once again, was that Freya really meaning to be good, or did Anise know she'll get him? She's the salesman of the group.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a very point, like the compassionate side. I think that's where I really wanted to try and to sort of go more in that direction of Freya and that the compassion, because that was the difference between the Tok'ra and the Goa'uld. Is that they wanted to they incorporated both they incorporated both the host and the symbiote. So they're essentially dealing with these, two push and pulls. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'm an actor, so I'm much more emotional, and I relate more to Freya's side of things than Anise. But I can appreciate, sometimes I wish I was more left-brained and more contained and less like not crazy, but like as an actor, you have to be very in touch with your feelings and very sensitive, and you're pushing your emotions to the edge a lot of the time. So it can, it's hard actually sometimes to live with that amount of sensitivity.
And I mean, obviously the main group of SG-1, I assume in on set were tight. Is it hard to be a recurring character within a set of people who've worked together for that long? And what was it like on set with them?
Yeah, no, it's always it is always a little strange to come on a set where everybody's been working for a season or two and they're all in the groove. And even with the crew, it's like everybody's sort of in the groove, and you're coming on as a new person. You're trying to adapt, and you're trying to like, and anytime you're doing TV, you're always against the clock, or any production really. And so there, it's serious. It's serious in that we got to get this done. We got to get our 6 pages or 7 pages or whatever it is, and and then sometimes you'll get like a little bit of, like again, this is not no ill feeling towards Amanda Tapping at all. She was a lovely, beautiful person, but I think that sometimes, it's like in life, it's like another female comes watching this or something. It's there's some sort of territorial things that happen, but very subconsciously. But I'm not saying, just in general, like when you're on it, I'm not just picking at me and Amanda, but like, that kind of dynamic when you're coming on as a guest, you have to sometimes navigate some of the personal things that are going on the set.
So there was tension between you and Amanda on set.
No, there was
okay.
No, there was no tension, but I kind of had heard through the grapevine that like she wanted to push her character and Jack to more romantic place. So it kind of meant like one of us wasn't going to go there. So it was more, but that could have been completely a writer's decision. I really don't know, but I don't know. I just remember there was a little bit of something going
on. Did you hear, like, do you know where things were going to go with the character if the next season had happened?
No, I mean, I think that's what they were trying to figure out. And then, then when I wasn't really available because of being pregnant, but then they might have also just decided that we didn't like where this was headed. So I really don't know. That would be a question to ask the producers.
Well, one thing that's kind of interesting is that I guess Freya and Anise had appeared in one of the Stargate books that had come out after that. So is that anything you kept up with? Like, did you know that had happened?
No. No. I
Yeah.
didn't know. I know from doing Comic Cons that like the character was very intriguing to people. So that's a lovely takeaway from it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I as I was doing research to talk to you, and I watched the episodes. I want to make sure I knew, watch them again and get some information, whatever I missed. And like I said, I found out the book had been written. I was like, damn, how did I miss this book? But yeah, there is a novel, not fan fiction, but like a genuine novel where she's one of the primary characters of the book.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. I never knew that.
Yeah, I'll have to find out the title, and I'll send you the email with the name on it so you can check it out.
Oh, that would be awesome. Thank you.
But I'm pretty sure I gotta find it now on Amazon so I can figure out where they were headed with the character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably right in there. Yeah.
So as we're talking, so like I said, you had gone through the convention circuit. Is that, are you still experiencing how big of a franchise it is from doing all that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, like, or like I said earlier in the 2000s, I did specific Stargate conventions, all over the world. I mean, one in England and Germany, I think, one, and just different cities in the States as well. And I mean, they are just, those specific Stargate ones are very, very, the avid fans who really just can't get enough Stargate. And I did, another good thing about Stargate is that I met one of my, who became one of my closest friends, Musetta Vander. She played Shinnok. Is that the name? Shinnok? Anyway, one of the episodes that I did, she was playing a role, and we became fast friends, and 21 years later we're still friends. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So you now recently appeared in Johnny and Clyde as Susan. So can you tell our listeners about the project and Susan?
Yes, Johnny and Clyde is a movie that I shot in Rhode Island, and it's about these. It's sort of a takeoff of Bonnie and Clyde. It's about these two young 20 something kids who are serial killers and kind of wild and crazy. And they decide to rob this casino that is run by Megan Fox's character, who's pretty crazy. And I play this news reporter, this journalist who has found out some like shady things going on with this casino. So the movie starts out with me actually coming to interview Megan's character to find out what is going on, and all hell breaks loose. But it's got kind of a dark comedy. It's almost like it's got some comedic edge to it, and it's kind of like just got some old 80s kind of horror, like like retro kind of like imagery and stuff. So it's really fun, but it's violent, but it's fun at the same time, which sounds like a strange combination. But and that kind of like the way Quentin Tarantino does that kind of like weird mixture of funny and horrific and dramatic at the same time.
So what interested you in playing Susan?
Oh, well, I just I got a call literally from this production company in Rhode Island, and they're like, "Would you like to do this?" And I read it, and I'm like, "Yeah." And anytime it's a chance to travel. I mean, I love going to new places, so I'm like, "Yeah, I'm there." And then it turns out that we got on really well, and it was a great experience. And this company does about 10 movies a year. So then they used me for 2 more movies last year, where different kind of movies, more family movies. Actually, one of them was a Christmas movie. And so I did, I was really in the mode last year of just saying yes. I decided just say yes and see where it takes you. So yeah, and it's actually I'm so glad that I said yes, because like I said, I met these people, and they've become really good friends of mine. And so it's like, now for me, the experience of making the movie is so much more important than how the movie turns out. Or you have very little control really of that. Like, you can control your performance to a certain degree, but then there's still the editor, and there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that have to come together. So the actual experience of me going to a new city or a new wherever, and working with new people and getting to know new people, and being having that sort of camaraderie with, that's what I love now, more even than and the actual process of making the movie, than however the movie turns out is how it turns out. And you hope for the best, and sometimes they turn out amazing, and sometimes they turn out not so amazing. But yes, it's the process, it's the journey as opposed to the destination.
Well, as listeners of the show know, and as we talked about off camera, I'm live in Rhode Island. So what was the experience like in my home state? Hopefully it was welcoming.
I love it. I love Rhode Island. I'm like, I'm genuine. I lived in New York for 9 years, so I love the East Coast. And I had been to Newport, Rhode Island for the Kingpin premiere back in '96, and I literally had not been there since this Johnny and Clyde movie. And I mean, I love Providence, because it actually kind of reminds me a little bit of parts of London, where I grew up in outside London, and it's kind of got got that historic kind of vibe. And I just and I love, the people are great, the food is great, the people are warm and friendly. I mean, I love the Northeast anyway, so it's a great state. And plus the Farrelly brothers from there, who I have such fondness for. So I feel like, yeah, Rhode Island has been kind of significant in my life so far.
So, I mean, as also listeners know, there's conventions in Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Boston. Are those potential future convention destinations for
I would
you?
love, yes. I mean, yeah, I would absolutely love to do, yeah. So, I mean, I did it, the last 2 years I've done quite a lot. So I kind of pulled back a little bit this year. But yeah, I'll find out if I do one in Rhode Island or Boston. I will let you know, and you can say hi in person.
Well, I'm telling you, Rhode Island Comic Con is the Rhode Island one, and Terrificon is the great one in Connecticut. So you heard it here, and I'm obviously advertising them. So get her on your conventions.
Yes, please, please.
Like I said, the state has done some well with movies, as you said. You've been in, I think, 3 now in Rhode Island. That were recent.
The other two were last year. I shot a Christmas movie called Merry Xmas that came out Christmas. of 2022. And then I did another movie called The Preacher's Wife that we shot in Warwick. Is it Warwick or Warwick?
It's Warwick, yeah.
Warwick, yeah. So we shot that in Warwick mostly, and then at a house that was maybe like 30 minutes outside of there. And that was super fun too. And the Tommy DiNucci, who directed Johnny and Clyde, also acted. He's an actor as well. He's like so talented. He's amazing. And he also acted in the Christmas movie that I was in, and in The Preacher's Wife that I did. So he's multi-talented and great. And he's a Rhode Island guy, and Italian, and he's wonderful. Yeah.
Well, then you see him say hi from another Rhode Islander for me.
Yeah.
So the movie Johnny and Clyde also starred, like you said, Megan Fox and also Ling. May I pronounce the name? Bay Ling.
Yeah.
So what were they like to work with?
Great. Well, I'd actually worked with Bay on another movie about 4 years ago called Hustle Down with Tom Sizemore. And then she also does some of the Comic-Con circuit. So I've seen her at Comic-Con. So she's great. She's wild. She's crazy. She's wild. She's great. She's like, I don't know if you've met her before, but she's like they broke the mold with her. She's great. She's great. No, everybody on Johnny and Clyde was super great. I mean, I actually only have a supporting part in it, so I wasn't there throughout the whole movie, but you know, and Megan obviously is Megan. So yeah, I think it's a fun ride. I mean, it's different. It's not probably everybody's cup of tea, but it's really, it was a great experience. And as I said, it brought me into this fold of my family in Rhode Island. So I'm very grateful for it.
So when is Johnny and Clyde supposed to hit? Is it theaters or is it go to streaming?
I'm not, originally it was coming out through Lionsgate in theaters, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know it's May 5th is the date that they've set, but I'm not sure if it's streamed. I will find out exactly the platforms. It's all very confusing now, the way they bring out movies. It's like, I don't know. I can't make sense of it anymore.
So what's next for you?
I'm actually, you know, trying to put this movie together myself. Actually, I'm trying to sort of do some producing. My manager is a producer as well, and so we've been working on putting this project together, and it's coming together really well, actually. And as I said, like I did like a year after COVID, you know, everything sort of shut down. Then there was a sort of slew of war, and then I literally did like 7 movies back to back, and a ton of Comic-Cons in between. So by the end of last year, I was actually kind of burned out. So this year, I'm like, I'm going to be just a little bit more, not picky, but just, I kind of spread myself too thin last year. So I learned from that. So yeah.
I know you can't give away too much, but what can you tell us about the project you're producing?
Well, right now we have a wonderful cast. Gilles Marini, who is, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a fantastic French actor. And then Sofia Milos, who is fantastic Italian actress, but she's lived here for many years. And I actually had worked with her on Weird Science like 26 years ago or something. And we're actually we have an offer out to Charlie Sheen right now for another role. But he's doing a new series with Chuck Lorre, so I don't know if he's going to be available, but yeah, so it's really interesting to be on the other side of it, because it's really like putting a puzzle together, and if one little piece of the puzzle falls out, you can't complete it, and it's like every day there's like a new, okay, you need one day, okay, this is all lining up great, we're all in, and then the next day, oh, well, this element's not happening. So then you go, it's like, oh, it's real. I don't know how producers don't go out of their minds. It's really a lot to like put, and this is like a simple, the script is called I Love You, which I think is a lovely title. And it's very sweet. It's sort of I would say it's a dramedy, you know, it's got some comedic parts in it, but it's also kind of, you know, heartfelt and, you know, kind of romantic comedy really, but with a little more than that. Like it's not like sort of super cheesy or anything. It's really good. I like it. It's a great role for me.
So when you're ready to talk about it, you can come back on?
Yes, I would love to.
That is absolutely, Miss Angel. You've been an absolute pleasure to talk with, and I can't wait to hear more about the movie you're making.
Yeah, anytime. Well, thank you so much for having me on. You too. Bye.